We are just about 1 hour away from the final debate between presidential candidates Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. What can we expect tonight?
Fire officials are on high alert because of Santa Ana winds, hot temperatures, and low humidity. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Santa Ana winds, dry vegetation, and rising temperatures. A dangerous combination, and tonight San Diego County is under a red flag warning for high fire danger. The region's most destructive wildfires have happened during the month of October. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy is out in one of those very dry spots, Mission Trails Regional Park. Susan?
And it was right around this very same week in October that both the 2003 and 2007 wildfires erupted. Both of those years, the vegetation looked a lot like it does here at Mission Trails, crispy and brown. And both of those fires broke out during Santa Ana winds.
This was the scene of San Diego's firestorm in 2007. Walls of flames driven by strong Santa Ana winds roared through neighborhoods. 10 people died, 500,000 were evacuated, 1,600 homes burned.
I can honestly say it was the worst day of my career.
CAL FIRE Battalion Chief Pete Scully has worked as a firefighter for 40 years. He says he had never seen such erratic fire behavior.
Flames basically going horizontally, not up, but just blowing straight across, solid wall of flames.
2007 was an exceptionally dry year. Canyon slopes and hillsides were browned to a crisp, just like they are now.
The brush is stressed. The brush, and all species of brush, some are more obvious than others, but they're all starting to show some dieback.
Scully specializes in reducing hazardous vegetation that could fuel fires. His father was a firefighter, so is his son.
Be careful. This stuff is slipperier than it looks.
He led me on a tour of Hapatul Valley in the East County, where critically dry vegetation is ripe for burning.
You can see the buckwheat here. You've got some dieback on the buckwheat. Again, just adding fuel, and this is just an isolated portion here. This is that chamise again that we were looking at. This portion here has completely died.
He says the chamise shrub is a good indicator of the heavy toll of 5 years of drought. The plant can grow to about 10 feet tall. It has tiny needle-like leaves and white flowers that bloom in the spring. The die-off of the flowers at the tips of the plant is normal.
But when we see actual leaf starting to die, and we see things such as I was showing down here, whole portions of the shrub dying, this tells us that this shrub is very stressed, and what happens is this now becomes what we call dead fuel.
Dead fuel is extremely flammable because fire does not have to use energy to dry off living plants or live fuels.
So if there's moisture in this fuel, all of that moisture has to be driven out before it can actually get hot enough to burn.
He says live fuels with enough moisture can slow a fire down, but when Santa Ana winds push fire through dead vegetation, it can quickly become an unstoppable force of nature.
But if you're in a solid stand of this type of brush at this height, under the right conditions with the right slope, you could easily get 100-foot tall flames coming off this brush.
Most shrubs around the county, especially on south-facing hillsides, have dipped below critical moisture levels. Already dead are tens of thousands of oak trees decimated by beetles and tall grasses that sprouted in spring.
Most fires are going to start in either the grass or the fine dead fuels that you see at the base of this brush.
Then there's topography. San Diego's canyons and hills combined with its dry climate makes it one of the most dangerous fire regions in the country. A wind-driven blaze can move about 4 times faster going up a 45-degree angle compared to flat land.
So therefore more fuel is being consumed, the flame lengths get bigger, As the flame lengths get bigger, it generates more heat, which preheats more, farther ahead of itself, which causes the fire to burn more efficiently, and so it becomes this sort of snowball effect as it moves upslope.
Steep hillsides also make firefighting difficult for ground crews lugging heavy hoses.
We can't use tractors or bulldozers on steep slopes. Aircraft can't get down into the canyons as effectively because of updrafts, and just, you can't fly a big air tanker down through this canyon to put stuff he or she has to drop from a higher altitude.
Hundreds of thousands of acres across the county have burned over the last 13 years. Still, Scully says most of the county remains at high risk for fire. He urges people to clear clutter from their yards, remove flammable vegetation from around their property, and evacuate if told to do so.
They fail to understand how dangerous and how hot and just how fast these fires can burn.
And you can see over my shoulder that winds are relatively calm here, but they are expected to gust as high as 20 miles per hour later on tonight and tomorrow morning. Winds in the mountains are expected to gust up to 50 miles per hour. Now, CAL FIRE has increased staffing and equipment in case of a fire. Reporting from Mission Trails, Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Election Day is less than 3 weeks away, and supporters of one city measure say there's a design flaw in San Diego's absentee ballots. Supporters of Measure K say if someone uses a felt tip pen and votes yes on Measure E, the mark bleeds through to the other side and indicates a no on Measure K. But County Registrar Michael Vu tells KPBS Midday Edition there's no bleed through issue if voters use a ballpoint pen.
We'll be looking at every ballot before this election is certified so that the public, as well as the proponents of Measure E and Measure K, knows that we've properly adjudicated the ballot as well as accurately counted it.
Vu says if someone who voted by mail is worried they marked their ballot incorrectly, they can always request another ballot. You can hear the full interview with Michael Vu on KPBS Midday Edition tomorrow at noon. As presidential candidates Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump prepare to face off in the final debate, their VPs boost them up on the campaign trail. PBS NewsHour John Yang reports from Las Vegas.
The final face-off comes as Donald Trump is facing sliding poll numbers, allegations of sexual assaults, and is pressing his own claims of a rigged election.
He sort of telegraphed a little bit. It's going to be scorched earth.
Campaigning in Ohio today, Hillary Clinton's running mate Tim Kaine predicted his nominee won't be rattled.
Hillary's going to be very strong on the facts and the details and demonstrating knowledge. And I think she'll be what she was in the first two debates. She will be steady and calm, whatever Donald Trump tries to throw at her.
One thing Donald Trump could throw, a new allegation against former President Bill Clinton. Breitbart News reported today that Leslie Milwee, a former Arkansas TV reporter, claims that then-Governor Clinton sexually assaulted her 3 times in 1980. Trump campaign chairman Steve Bannon is on leave as Breitbart News executive chairman. Trump's number 2, Mike Pence, didn't mention the report today, but in Durango, Colorado, he argued that his man is set to deliver a strong performance.
You sure saw that on the stage in his last debate a week ago Sunday, didn't you, when he beat Hillary Clinton hands down? And I promise you, I'm going to get on an airplane, I'm headed to Vegas, because you're going to see it happen again tonight.
Chris Wallace of Fox News will moderate the 90-minute debate on 6 topics in 15-minute segments: debt and entitlements, immigration, the economy, the Supreme Court, foreign hotspots, and fitness to be president. And on the sidelines, psychological warfare. The Trump campaign has invited Malik Obama, President Obama's Kenyan-born half-brother, but denies it's trying to resurrect claims that the president was born in Kenya. Another Trump guest, Patricia Smith, the mother of a State Department employee killed in the attack on the diplomatic compound in Benghazi, Libya. The Clinton camp has invited 2 business figures highly critical of Trump: former Hewlett-Packard CEO Meg Whitman and billionaire Mark Cuban.
We'll bring you this final 90-minute presidential debate on KPBS television and radio beginning tonight at 6. Legalizing marijuana is one of the big issues on California's ballot and in 8 other states. And today, a new Gallup poll says U.S. support for legalization is at its highest level in 47 years. A record 60% of Americans say they're in favor of legalization. Support is highest among independents and 18 to 24-year-olds. San Diego County voters are being asked to approve more than $1 billion in school bonds. School districts like Fallbrook and El Cajon are proposing the money funds projects from campus improvements to school safety. Earlier today, I spoke with Leo Castaneda with our iNews partner, Media Source, about tracking the money, and here's what he had to say. So, Leo, come this November, voters are asked to approve up to $1.6 billion in school bonds. Can you tell me who's asking for the money and what might it pay for?
Yeah, so we're talking about 10 different school districts throughout San Diego County, elementary through community college, like Grossmont, Cuyamaca Community College, which is where we are today. And they're asking for this money for everything from fixing leaky roofs and busted pipes to building new classrooms and getting new technology for the rooms.
$1.6 billion sounds like a lot of money. Can you tell me how this compares to what voters have been asked to approve in past years?
So it is a lot of money, but it's less than we've seen in previous years. And that's in part because recently in the presidential elections, we've seen these $2+ billion bonds from San Diego Unified. We don't have anything like that this year.
So where would this money come from? Who would pay for this?
Yeah, so if this is approved, the voters in each district will have a new property tax, and that can range from $15 for every $100,000 in their property value to $60 for every $100,000.
What about the property owners who say they're already paying a lot of property taxes and the money should already go to projects like this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is money that districts want separately. They a lot of their fears is that a lot of that tax money that they already receive is going just to basic maintenance, keeping the school running. This is money that they want additional for growth, upgrades, and major reconstruction on some of their schools that are, 40, 50, 60 years old.
So, Leo, what's in place to ensure the money will be spent the way officials say it will?
Yeah, so there are some safeguards that are in place by the state to make sure that this money is not misspent. For example, it can't be used on salaries. There has to be an oversight committee to make sure that the money is being spent on projects that are allowed by the law, and they review it and they produce audits. And the problem is that there is a concern that money will be used on the projects that are allowed, but not necessarily in the order that people expect. Once the money has been approved, it's up to the school board trustees to vote on what they want to build first. And hopefully, I think a lot of people hope it'll be the classrooms, but it could be stadiums or more vanity projects before, the necessary repairs are done. Impacts a lot of people. Absolutely, yeah, all over the county. It's, K through 14, so students, parents, all over the county are going to be infected, and, it's going to make a difference for decades to come.
There's also a state school bond measure on the ballot. KCET's Val Zavala gives us the look at Prop 51.
Prop 51, school bonds. I know, boring, but there's a lot of money at stake, so give me a minute. Prop 51 will issue $9 billion in bonds for building and fixing schools and community colleges. Bonds are paid back with interest, so the real cost of a $9 billion bond is actually $17 billion. Supporters of Prop 51 say many of our schools need new facilities, better classrooms, and repairs, often for fire or earthquake safety. Prop 51's main backer is the California Building Industry Association, who says it would also create a lot of jobs. Opponents say the construction industry backs this prop so we can get $9 billion worth of tax-supported business. They also say school bonds are best when they're local, and this one is statewide and would be controlled by state bureaucrats. Critics say rich schools have experts who know how to pounce on bond money quickly, so poor schools would lose out. In fact, Governor Brown says Prop 51 would squander money that would be better spent in low-income communities. So bottom line, a yes vote means you're in favor of $9 billion in state bonds for school repairs and construction. A no vote means you don't want the state to issue the bonds.
You can learn more about what's on your ballot with the KPBS Voter Guide. It's an interactive website that uses your address to pull up all the issues you'll see on your ballot this election. You'll also find links to our coverage of these issues. It's all at kpbs.org/voterguide. voter guide. Wells Fargo Bank is facing a criminal investigation in California for its sales practices. It comes after allegations that bank employees opened 2 million bank and credit card accounts for customers without their approval. To meet sales goals, the bank's CEO resigned last week after the accusations. The outgoing Secretary of the Navy visited San Diego today and answered questions about a controversial decision to drop some of its traditional titles. The move has drawn criticism from sailors. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
We're out in front of the NASCO shipyard where Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus talked to sailors and shipbuilders about the future of the Navy. Mabus took questions. A sailor asked about the Navy's recent decision to drop many of its traditional ranks like boatswain's mate and gunner's mate, which the Navy has used for hundreds of years. The move has drawn fire from sailors since the decision was announced back in September. Mabus says the old system made it difficult for some sailors to advance. The titles were also confusing to potential civilian employers.
And I think that as sailors learn more about this and the goodness that's involved, that they'll promote easier, that they'll have more choices and duty stations, and that when they transition out of the Navy, they'll be better prepared to get a job very quickly instead of having to go back through a lot of the certifications that they've already done. I think that you're going to see it become far more accepted.
The effort was designed to make the ranks more gender neutral, though traditional titles like midshipman and seaman are expected to remain. Today's stops in San Diego were something of a farewell tour for Mabus. He's the longest serving Secretary of the Navy since World War I, but he's expected to leave at the end of the Obama administration. Other than being here at NASCO, he was also up at Camp Pendleton. Reporting from the NASCO shipyards in San Diego, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Last February's brawl at Lincoln High School was cited in a new report from the ACLU today. The report looks into how police are used in California schools. It finds most districts lack consistent policies on when and why police are called in, and many allow staff to call police for small infractions like bullying and disruptions in class. During the Lincoln High incident, one student was stunned and several were pepper sprayed. The report quotes one student as saying, "Since then, the school feels over-policed and the once tight-knit community feels more like a prison." Teachers and lawmakers gathered at the state capitol today to talk to students from around the state about the importance of shutting bullies down by speaking up. A physician warned that bullying can cause long-lasting mental and emotional damage and has even driven some children to commit suicide. Some students report being bullied because of their religion.
29% of young girls who wear a veil either had their veil ripped off or tugged at. And so these are serious problems, and especially in this political climate today where some elected officials are being bullies, it trickles down to society.
Last month, Governor Jerry Brown signed a bill into law that looks to put a stop to bullying based on religious affiliation. California's 2015 college graduates took out student loans at lower amounts compared to most other states. That's according to a report from the Institute for College Access and Success. It finds California students left about $22,000 in debt, relatively low when compared to New Hampshire students who carry an average of $36,000 in debt. Researchers say the relatively low borrowing rate of California students is due in part to the 2012 tuition freeze and the willingness of the legislature to dictate a large chunk of the general fund to subsidize higher education.
This is long-term debt. This is debt they'll have for a while, and it can potentially delay them in doing other things like buying a house or starting a family if the loan amounts are big enough. Luckily in California, we have one of the lowest ratios of students taking out loans in the nation, and their loan amounts are often lower than other states as well.
A voter-approved 2012 tax increase on California's earning $250,000 or more played a crucial role in the UC and CSU tuition freeze. A new solar energy plant in San Diego County may soon power 5,000 homes. Today, the County Board of Supervisors unanimously approved a plan for a new solar plant east of Jacumba along the U.S.-Mexico border. Critics say the location could interfere with wildlife, but supporters say it's close to the SD&G substation, and that means that shorter transmission lines, and developers say they will set aside 184 acres as open space. Viejas may soon be expanding its casino and hotel. Today, the San Diego County Board of Supervisors removed a major hurdle. They unanimously approved a $150,000 deal with the Viejas band of the Kumeyaay Indians. The money will come to the county to pay for expansion impacts, including additional traffic, water resources, and fire protection. The San Diego City Council yesterday voted down a permanent agreement with Civic San Diego. That's the nonprofit that helps decide how to use some public land. But at the same meeting, the outcome later changed. KPBS reporter Taryn Minto tells us how it all unfolded.
Councilwoman Marty Emerald, who voted against the permanent agreement, later asked to reconsider it with some changes. She wanted a 5-year limit on the deal and stronger language to make some requirements enforceable. The time limit was immediately added, but the city attorney's office said it might not be able to make and bring back the additional changes to the council before Emerald's term ends in December.
If we can't get this back to us so that this council can vote on it, then I'll withdraw my motion and we can just let it go the way it did in the last vote. I want to see Civic around, but you know, this pussyfooting around just isn't going to work.
The council proceeded with the vote because some members were concerned about the future of Civic's projects and staff. The change to a 5-year deal from a permanent one meant the agreement could pass with only 5 votes instead of the initial 6. And it did. Taryn Minto, KPBS News.
And California regulators have been working on rules for self-driving cars that don't have pedals or steering wheels. Today in Sacramento, they got some feedback from car makers and the public. They said the rules still need some work. Some critics say they're worried the state is moving too quickly, trying to adopt the technology before the public is ready for it. But others are promoting a proactive approach.
Now, for 50 years, our approach has largely been reactive. We prescribe safety standards and then wait for problems to happen. Tragically, that often means someone is injured or dies on our roadways before action can be taken. The tack we are taking here is quite different.
The federal proposal includes requiring any self-driving car to pass a 15-point safety check before it can be used by the public. There's a new incentive for homeowners to replace water-hungry lawns with more efficient landscaping. Today, the San Diego County Water Authority announced a new grant. Qualified applicants can receive up to $1.75 per square foot for eligible projects. For more information about how you can apply, log on to sustainablelandscape.sd.org/incentives. Earlier in this newscast, we told you San Diego County is under a red flag warning. That means our fire risk is especially high with hot weather and low humidity. Shanae Shocker is going to tell us how long this may last.
We're seeing some very hot temperatures over the last couple of days, and unfortunately, we have one more day to hold on. So over the last 6 hours, at least we're staying dry, but that also increases the fire danger with this heat. So throughout tonight, temperatures cool off into the low 60s, clear skies ahead. Same for the rest of the county. Oceanside, 49 degrees, very comfortable. Ramona, 51. Mount Laguna, 50 degrees. Borrego Springs jump up into the upper 50s. And Mecca, the warmest as usual, sitting at 64. Now for today and through Friday, we'll continue to see warmer conditions than what we're used to. As this area of high pressure slides inland, the rotation on this is what's ushering in an offshore flow, pushing that marine air off the coast. So we have some strong winds from that flow. And because that marine layer is gone, those Santa Ana winds making it quite hot and really increasing the fire danger with the dryness and the drought down in Southern California. So here's your 5-day outlook for the coast. Remaining extremely hot for Thursday, 94 degrees in the county. Friday is beginning to cool off, still warmer than average though, 87 degrees. Now the overnight lows still staying pretty cool though, 49 degrees for your Thursday, 52 for your Friday, and then we have a big drop off in temperatures come this weekend. We get into the low 80s by Saturday, the upper 70s by Sunday, and now we're back down into the mid-70s. Very comfortable conditions come Monday, increasing cloud cover throughout that time. Now, as we head inland, these temperatures even hotter. Check this out. So for your Thursday, it's going to be breezy, which also increases that risk of fire hazards as well. Temperatures nearing the triple digits. Check out the difference between your high during the day and your low at night. 100 degrees for your daytime high on Thursday, and your low 58 degrees, nearly or over 40 degrees different. Friday will remain hot. It's feeling like summer out here near the triple digit marks on Friday. After Friday, this is where we begin to see a cool down. We'll stay in the 90s come Saturday, but by Sunday and Monday, we'll drop back down into the 80s. It will be partly sunny, warm, much nicer. Could have a shower in the morning on Monday. Now, the mountain regions, they're usually flip-flop. So Thursday, it's cooler, 67 degrees, still dry though and windy. This is causing those fire hazards. Be aware as you head outdoors. Friday, we'll jump up into the low 70s, 7 degrees for your Saturday, looking very nice. And then we cool off come Sunday and Monday back into the 60s. And last but not least, we head out into the deserts, 90 degrees across the board, sunny, hot, as well as breezy. You're sitting in the low to mid 90s, overnight lows sitting around 50 or in the upper 50s and into the low 60s. For KPBS News, I'm Shanae Shocker.
PBS coverage of the final presidential debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump begins in about 30 minutes here on KPBS television. We'll also carry it on KPBS radio. It all starts at 6 o'clock. Tomorrow, join us for Morning Edition on KPBS radio for debate highlights and analysis. And on Midday Edition at noon, Proposition 64 aims to legalize recreational marijuana in California. We'll explain how the prop will affect San Diego. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.